Welcome to CV Hustle, the podcast created to educate, inform, and inspire entrepreneurship here in our Coachella Valley.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Robert Mraz, and this is
Fina Mraz.
And this is CV Hustle, episode number 2. And CV Hustle is a podcast dedicated to educating, inspiring, and guiding local entrepreneurship here in our Coachella Valley. And today, nothing but illustrious guests. We got a special co-host today. We got Mr. Angel Chavez, Desert Underground himself, joining the show today to help the guest host. Thanks for showing up, man.
No, thank you, Coach. Thank you, Fina, for allowing me to be part of the first couple episodes of the show. So.
Yeah, and truth be told, Angel's kind of the inspiration behind all this.
Absolutely.
So, we're gracious that you came to kind of join us for a second show today. Today we're going to be talking about my company, iPay Solutions, which was founded in 2017.
Your company?
Our company.
I'm just kidding.
Our company, of course, 50-50, right? But yeah, so we're going to kind of go into that backstory. And so if you're into accounting or, payroll, really exciting things.
HR.
I mean, wow, very exciting stuff. But, there is a need for it, especially here in California. For small businesses. So this is the podcast for you. Any service-based business, we're going to kind of give you some tidbits on how we started, and where we're going, and little things that maybe if you're thinking about opening a service-based business in that industry, you're going to get some tidbits from us today.
Absolutely. I think you're going to shed some light on this accounting world, and it's pretty stuff. It's very cool. it is. It's pretty interesting to me how your business runs versus my business runs and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, two different worlds. Totally two different worlds.
So before we talk about iPay Solutions, so like, tell us a little bit about your backstory. So I want to know, because I know you as a coach, you coached me in high school.
Story.
But
not old that I coached this guy. He was a kid.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. You grew up in the Valley, or were you from somewhere else?
So originally I was born in LA, Long Beach to be exact, and then my dad bought a dental practice here in Indio in the 80s, or in the mid 80s. So he moved us all. It was just me at the time. And he moved us out to Indio.
And it's called Super Smiles.
Yeah, it's called Super Smiles. It's still in business. My brother took it over, actually. So my dad moved us out here from LA. He's an LA native from Los Angeles his whole life. So I basically grew up here. I'm a native. I went to Indio High School. Shout out to the Rajas.
Shout out Rajas.
We haven't had that bell in a long time.
2012.
It's been a while.
Those counting.
Me and Angel are very upset about that.
Yeah.
So I graduated from Indio High School, played football, did the whole thing. I was 97 graduate of Indio High School.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
Oh, we got a clan. So I got 3 brothers and 1 sister. I'm the oldest. Everybody's doing well. We're pretty tight-knit family, so I'm sure they're all watching. Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, sure.
So I went away to school. I was smart enough to know that I needed to go to college to get out of here, so I did enroll in UCSB in the fall of 97, or the fall of 97.
Yeah.
Went to UCSB, got a political science degree, which I don't know what that's really good for, except for being a politician. But it was one of the degrees that I found interesting, and it's something that I actually like to go to class for. So we kind of went that direction. Graduated in 2001, and then in 2000.
Did you play college football?
I did not play. I'll tell this story now. It's kind of interesting. So I had offers coming. I was like an all-DVO player, and I was decent. I wasn't a superstar or anything, but I had offers to play at smaller colleges. They actually recruited me and called me and wanted me to come out and visit their campuses and stuff like that. But I also was like, it's not US. My dream was always USC or UCLA Division I. I want to be a player. When that was like looking like it wasn't going to happen, I kind of opened up my mind, because football is a very jealous mistress. Football it's time. If you're gonna do it right, it consumes your life. You're working out.
Tell me about it.
You're working out like all year round. You're at practices. You're in meetings. It's a grind, and it consumes your life. So it becomes your identity, I think.
Yeah.
For me, I'd played for 10 years. I played since I was a kid. I was kind of in high school. I was kind of thinking, hey, maybe if I'm not going to get a Division I scholarship, if I'm not that good of a player, then maybe I need to use my brain for something. So
before you bang it up.
Yeah, so I did have offers, and I'll tell a story because my dad still reminds me of this. I had offers to play at different places, like smaller colleges, but I went and visited UC Santa Barbara, and just on an academic kind of visit, go check out schools. And I went.
Tell them the real reason you picked me.
I just don't want to get kicked under the table.
Oh, stop.
So I went to UC Santa Barbara and went on my visit, and I saw all these, blondes and bikinis riding around, because UC Santa Barbara is right on the beach. I mean, it's a beautiful campus.
It is.
And it was, in the summer, and the girls were in bikinis and riding around on the bikes, and I was like, hey, this is probably where I'm going to go to school. Sorry, Dad.
I'm going here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be playing football anymore. I think my football days are over. But it ended up being a really good choice because it's a really great school. Football is, it ends badly for everybody anyway, unless you're like a superstar. So I kind of checked out early and went to UC Santa Barbara. So that's what we did. My dad still reminds me of that story every once in a while. You could have played. I'm like, We had my brother actually played Division I. My brother Billy, Division I college. So my dad got to live
through him,
vicariously through him. So it worked out for him. So, but no, just kidding, Dad, just kidding. But
shout out Billy.
Shout out to Billy, Naval Academy. So I went to school. I was kind of in between. You get in that graduation mode where you're kind of in between, like, what are you gonna do? So I remember Coach Machado. Did you ever meet Coach Machado? Yeah. He was my coach, and I played for him. And he always used to tell me, hey, when you're done playing, you're kind of like a coach on the field. Come back and I'll have a job for you, if you want to coach football. So being, 22, 23 years old, I was like, okay, well, Santa Barbara is beautiful, but it's really expensive. So I knew I couldn't live there. So I was like, okay, well, let me explore this option. So I went and did get that assistant coaching job and took to it, loved it, still do that to this day. But at the same time, I was I'm gonna be a coach. I might as well be a teacher, right? Isn't that kind of the stereotypical thing that you do? Be a substitute teacher. And so I signed up to do all that, and I quickly realized coaching, I don't want to be around these guys more than this. These guys some of these guys, I'm dealing with the good kids. I'm dealing with the athletes. Imagine in the classroom, I was like,
the good kids.
Yeah, the kids that are at least motivated to do something.
It's extracurriculars.
Teaching's such a tough profession. Shout out to all the teachers, man. You guys deserve a lot more than what you get. It's a hard job. So shout out, but I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I got to find something else to do. So I love the coaching, but the teaching thing was like, I had gone to school to get my credentials, stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have to find a 9-to-5. Kind of fall into it. So I got a job, just like a temporary job at a CPA firm, and they were doing taxes. And I was like, there was quick cash during the tax season.
Yeah.
And, I was like, okay, I'm pretty smart. I got a college degree. I can figure this out. It's not hard. And, the next thing I know, they're throwing me in the bookkeeping department. They're throwing me in the tax department. And then I remember the payroll lady, decided she didn't want to do payroll anymore. So they basically threw me in that department, and I was now the head of that department. I had no idea what I was doing.
You're just figuring out as you go.
Yeah, just okay, here's how you do it, and this and that. So I got thrown into that side of it, and then I kind of took to it, and I liked it much better than bookkeeping. I hated bookkeeping because it is always different. Your clients kept it interesting. Oh, I need to fire this guy. I need to do this. I need to do that. The hours are different. They're always moving parts to payroll, even though it seems kind of boring. It's really not. Your clients will definitely keep it interesting. So I kind of took to it pretty well. So the next thing I know, that's when Christy and Vicky kind of stepped in and hired me away, right?
That's when I was working for the first tile lady. She had a friend who needed, right? Remember?
Yeah, they'd opened the business, and they were working out of their house, and they wanted to expand, right?
Yeah, so my boss at the time knew them, and I think they were doing her payroll, and they had said, hey, we're looking for somebody to do payroll. So I mentioned that to Bobby, and Bobby fit perfectly,
right. Yeah.
And they were working out of their house for a little bit.
So they gave me, I went to work for some ladies working out of their garage.
Yeah.
to start the payroll career, and But it was actually turned out to be a blessing because it was the agreement that they were going to get an office and expand. That's why they hired me. So we did that within the first year, and then we got the office, and it took off as just us three, and I was just learning. I was learning the industry.
So that was like your first client as like part of your own business, or leading you towards the entrepreneurial route.
That's what I'm saying is the blessing in disguise, because really it was just me. It's two owners and me.
Yeah.
So I had to learn every aspect of that business.
You're pretty much part of the business.
Yeah. I had to learn but I learned every aspect. So today, like in my company structure, there's departments.
Yeah.
Like the tax person doesn't really do the sales, and the processing and production side doesn't really do the taxes. Back then, I had to learn everything.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing. So it really was a blessing to be hired by Christy and Vicky to kind of come in and learn the business, and I learned it from scratch. We went from their house to an office, and then from there we grew it to, they doubled their business from just by moving it. So it was really a blessing, and that's how I kind of got started in the payroll game and the payroll HR world. It's like, she told her story, like, and then you had brought up a good question, like, where would you be if you took another job? And it's very true. It's very true. Like, I learned the ins and outs of that industry, and then you learn what to do and what not to do. So it's kind of cool. So yeah, that was kind of the I didn't know it at the time, because I'm not, and that's part of the reason we're doing this podcast, is because I was not an entrepreneur by heart, even though my father was a dentist and he had his own business.
Yeah.
I was terrified to go off on our own. Like I always.
I think that you're reserved and you're cautious, and that's kind of why we work, right? I'm a risk taker. You're like, hold on. So I think you're also proof of concept. Like you talked about you putting down things on paper and seeing if it worked, and this and that. Once you saw my business and where it kind of took off, you were like, oh, I can do this, because we really did push you out and kind of kick you out of the nest, if you will.
Right.
But he's got a great story. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, that was kind of the genesis of getting into that industry. And then I worked for them for 7 years, like a long time, but I was the office manager. We grew, I had employees working under me. And then what was 2016? I really, as we got into it, I saw things that we could be doing better.
Yeah.
I saw like there was the they were older ladies, so their technology wasn't as good as it should have been in terms of what the industry was offering at that time. And so there was things that I kind of already knew, just being there, that we could do better. And I think, they were older, so they were ready to get out.
They had always posed it to him and to all of their clients, like, he's going to be the guy that's taking over.
I was the heir apparent.
Yeah, he was.
I was the heir apparent.
Absolutely. And it was always, and so we always kind of thought that that's the way it was going to go as well, and It was just, we just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so we got, 7 years of managing the place, and they're getting ready to retire. So the discussions become a lot more serious about actually, taking over and buying the business. So I remember, me and her were like, okay, well, how do we even buy a business? Like, what's the steps to even doing that, And it was like, so it forced us to do our homework on what the business was actually worth,
Yeah, but you're getting ahead of yourself. We need to talk about how it actually all happened and how we got to that point of how you buy a business.
I'm getting to that. But that's what I'm saying. Like we did our homework, and I kind of figured out what the valuation of the business kind of should have been, because, there's an industry standards for every business.
Yeah.
So when it came time for us to kind of sit down and negotiate with them, they gave us a crazy high number, and we kind of were like, first we were like almost fell out of our seats, right?
Well, wait. Well, how did it get started? Let's talk about. I think we need to rewind. And how did it come? Like, hey, we're gonna get out of this business. Do you want to buy it? Like, how did that happen?
They were ready to retire, and they were ready to move on. I think they had kind of seen the writing on the wall and were ready to kind of sell it to the young guy and let him take it over.
Well, what were the details? What did they say?
What they say? You remember this better than I do, apparently. I don't
Well,
remember
no,
what
I mean,
said.
I
I just remember the sequence of events.
I think it was like, hey, we're going to retire and we want you to buy the business. And then didn't they give you like a proposal?
Yeah, and this is what I'm getting to. Like, we got the proposal.
Yep.
And we almost fell out of
We
our
almost
seats,
died.
right? Because it was
over $1
crazy.
million.
It was crazy. And
Yeah.
I mean, looking back on it now, it's kind of like a funny thing, but it was like we kind of at the time we're like, what the heck? There's no way this is worth. And the other thing is, I was the manager of the place, so I knew where all the bodies were buried in terms of the business, right?
Yeah.
I knew where all the pitfalls of the business were, where our profit centers were, and this and that. And I kind of, so I had a better understanding of what the thing was really worth, so.
And they had also given us, like, we all went out to breakfast one day and they had handed us their tax returns for, I think, a couple years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't do the numbers, right? Like, I could probably figure it out, but I don't want to. That's kind of his deal. But so we took those numbers and then he started looking at them going, holy shit, like everything that they're bringing in, they're spending. And I remember in my business, I was told not to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's fine, and that worked out for them. That was great. But I think that's when Bobby was like, nah, I don't know. And so we had talked to Gus, who was our CPA, right? We had talked to his parents. We had talked to everybody. And then at one time, Bobby was talking about possibly, well, why don't we let's go into partnership with them. Remember that conversation?
Yeah, that was a thought for a quick minute, but my dad came in and squashed that real quick because my father, here's your educational piece. My father, when he came out of dental school, did have a partner, and it was a really bad breakup. It's hard enough to run your own business, but it's really hard when you have somebody else that has input to your destiny as a business. So. For us, it was like partnership. Partnership was not going to be a good thing for us,
But I think the reason why Bobby was talking about let's go into partnership because that was still they were still kind of a security blanket, right? They were still in the business, but not really.
I also felt a lot of loyalty to them.
Correct.
And even to this
for the opportunity,
yeah. I mean, they taught me a lot, like everything about that business. So I even to this day, I have nothing but respect for them.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just at that moment of time, you have to make a decision that's in your best interest, in the best interest of your family. So, they were taught me everything. So I really respect and appreciate the time I was with them.
For myself, I was like, I am not doing a partnership because to me, marriage is hard enough and you're basically married to these people too, right?
Yeah,
if you're doing
absolutely.
that because you've got money, you've got all these big decisions that you would all have to make together, and I was not about it.
Right.
I was like, no, we can't do that. And then your dad saying not to do it, it's really a no.
Right. Yeah. So we looked at the numbers and we kind of looked at
Didn't
each
we
other.
offer them something?
No, we never made a counter.
We didn't?
Well, because the number was too high. We never really made a counter.
Yeah, it was never going to be
I kind
attainable.
of told them, hey, I did some research and I think it's
Your business was only really like
not only
worth
worth-
a quarter of that.
It's not worth what you're trying to sell us. And then so we went back and forth a little while with that. But then we kind of made a decision that, hey, we're gonna have to do this ourselves, And at first I was totally not really feeling that because I knew I'm going from managing a firm that has 300 clients to I'm gonna go back to zero and start
trying to find one
Yeah,
client.
trying to-
Yeah.
Well,
I had one,
me,
but maybe-
his parents, and our
Yeah.
mechanic.
Yeah, so I knew that was gonna be a grind because I have to go from managing a big firm and doing things a certain way to doing basically everything myself again.
Yeah.
Answering phones, doing sales, and that's what it ultimately took. But I knew that going in, and I was not thrilled about that. But at the same time, you have to make the best financial decision that you can in those situations. So we kind of determined early, like right after that meeting, that we were probably going to have to do this ourselves.
Well, why don't you talk a little bit about? He did some research again, of course. That's what he does, right? And we did some research, and he found a couple of software companies that he was interested in, and it was like, well, how much would it cost to start up with these guys,
Yeah, 'cause
right?
the name of our game is software and SaaS, all those
And
services.
one of the things I want to touch on is at that time, that's when I had just expanded my business to the breaking down the walls, and we went to that double building. So guess what? He didn't have to pay rent at an office because he could just.
He was
move
sharing
in.
with you.
I took the back desk in her office.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I
That
remember.
was iPay's first.
He had his own phone number.
First original origin.
So
right
what
there.
did you find out about, the software and stuff, all that?
So, I knew that we needed, that was the main thing that I had expressed to the ladies for a while, that we needed to do something about this, because their software was very antiquated and not cloud. It was not cloud based. It was all,
just paper trail.
hardware based, and it was, you could only work on one computer at a time, just very 2001, stuff. So, I knew that needed to be upgraded. So, and I was the one pushing this before I decided to move. Like, I brought this other vendor in that was doing the upgraded software, and we did a whole whole presentation, whole demo, and then they decided it was too expensive. And then that's when I was like, okay, so we're not going to be growing this business. We're just going to kind of keep it going barely.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to spend on this. So, but that turned out to be a blessing, because when we decided we're going to go, that was the first people I called was that salesperson that I had a demo with. And I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What are your guys' pricing? So I already had an in the industry.
Right. And one of the other things, remember, was we saved. Right?
Yeah.
So to start his business was going to be like 20 grand or whatever it was, but we had the money.
Yeah. It was initial investment of the software was basically, and you had a business. I mean, because I had the knowledge on how to do it. It's just I needed the software. So we could just buy software and have a business. So like I said, going back to the story where we're in negotiations. Basically, at that point, we had decided, okay, we're going to do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And that turned into be a very awkward situation for me, because, like I said, I was very loyal to the ladies. I love the ladies. They treated me very well. I have nothing but good things to say about them. But at the time, I needed to
best decision for yourself.
Cut out. Because and I regret this decision now. I think I can talk about it now, but I just basically gave my letter of resignation and bounced. I didn't even give them 2 weeks, and I was like the head dude. And the reason I did that, and at the time it made sense. Now I wish I would have did it a different way. So if you're listening, I apologize, but I wish I had to give them the 2 weeks. But I didn't want to be in there, them knowing that I was going to do my own thing, because then there was going to be accusations of like, oh, are you going to steal our clients? Are you going to steal our
of course.
Because in that industry, it's very competitive.
Yeah.
So, so looking back on it, I wish I did it a different way, but I just formed my letter of resignation and turned it in, and I was out,
Yeah, but some places, think about it today. If somebody came into your business and said, hey, I'm going to give you 2 weeks, but I'm going to start my own payroll company, you would have said, sorry, no, today's your last day. So I think it kind of worked out for you.
Absolutely, but I do, that frayed the relationship that I had with them for a couple of years. I've seen them since then, and I think it's okay now. They kind of understand now, but so that's something that I was not too proud of, but I had to do it, so and then the next day I went to her office and put my my laptop down, and we had a business, and then I went from managing a company that had like 300 clients to having three clients. So
you were able to start on your logo. You were able to do all these things because you didn't have that big overload, starting.
Absolutely. So. Like you said, it's a blessing, but at the time you think it's the worst thing in the world,
Scary, scary because you go from security and safety to the unknown.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Well, and then it was like how how the tables turned, because remember in the beginning he was like, I was the only one working, and now I was the only one working, and he wasn't bringing in a paycheck. So we were like, holy shit.
We took turns on that one.
We sure did.
Turns on that one.
Yeah.
So it was terrifying and exciting at the same time. But the number one thing, the blessing was, I had to learn how to do sales. That you ain't doing no business, and I know like it's hard, especially for my accountant people out there if you're listening, and we're not salespeople by nature, we're numbers people, and
right.
Like most accountants you meet are not gonna be able to sell anything, but when you're forced to do it, you learn how to do it. And I learned how to do it. I went to every BNI, every chamber, anything I could come across, I went to it and I learned. And it was horrible those first couple of meetings. I mean, I'm sure they were horrible, my presentation, but you learn, and you have to get out there and sell your product, And so that was one good thing that I did learn in that time when I was sitting there with 3 clients and had, I had all
you had more time to figure out network and hit all the spots.
And I think also one of the things I want to say about you was he did not go after their clients because he was like, you know what, I'm going to do it on my own. He's a good man like that. Like, you know what? Let them have their thing. I'm not going to go after their clients. I'm going to go get my own clients.
Yeah.
But he was that business. And that's another thing, that we both emotionally owned our businesses before we went. He was the face of that business, and they let everybody know that. So people, once they found out he was gone, it was like, whoa, what happened? Because they knew they were on shaky ground. They knew that they were going to eventually sell. Right. So what happened with that business? So
people started following me to where I was, especially the people that I handled their accounts. They used to talking to me like every week, So we had relationships. So we're able to build off of that slowly. But it was definitely, I remember a time where early on, like maybe the first couple of months, I had one guy that was a good account. He had 2 businesses, and I was real close to him, and he's like, he's talking to me about me leaving, and he's like, I think I'm gonna come over, and then he ended up not coming over.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember thinking that day as I was driving home, I'm like, man, this is gonna be harder than I thought. I gotta reevaluate what I'm doing here, so I better learn how to sell this thing. And that kind of drove me to like, okay, I got to go to every sales thing I can get my hands on in this valley.
Networking events,
everything, just so I can put my name out there.
Yeah.
And grind it out. And that's really what you got to do. If there's any lesson from this, it's like there's no substitute for sitting there and grinding it out and just being determined and getting after it and trying to sell your business. Because if you're not going to do it, ain't nobody else going to do it. So one thing about being an entrepreneur is you better learn how to sell yourself and your product and your business. Because if you don't, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So that was kind of Genesis. I started in her back office. Eventually, we worked our way up to like 25 clients.
I loved it because he would bring me lunch every day.
Right. I was working out of her office, and we worked our way up to 25 clients. We got a big account. Remember one of my old clients came over, and it was a big weekly account, and that was a big celebration. And
Sure.
And then I needed to like kind of hire because I was doing sales, and I couldn't be in the office now because I was trying to get out there and sell.
Yeah.
So I made my first hire, and she worked right alongside me in that back office, and we didn't have no sign. We didn't like people would come.
People were like walking to a tile store.
They would go to the tile store to pick up their stuff and confused. And and I mean that was what it was at that point,
But you want to know what else was kind of cool about him being in the back of the tile store was my clients started using him for payroll.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So build relationships.
It was like such a crazy thing, We both really were kind of cross promoting each other at that point, and I got business from his.
Yeah, I was gonna say someone like,
yeah.
It was.
I was looking to redo my shower and all these options. That's cool.
So it worked out. It was we just did what we had to do.
Right. It was quite an adventure, huh?
You were in the back of the showroom, and then once you started doing your own version of that business, where you're like, oh, I wish that business would have done this differently, you started implementing more things that you wanted the other business to do, or how did you approach it?
The good thing about being like in that coming up, kind of growing with that other business is I learned what to do and what not to do. I learned what our industry is. It's very like, it's not a high cost industry, so it's all about volume. So I realized that pretty early on. We got to do a lot of volume to make some money, So that was my key. My key thing was building out a sales team. Right when I opened this one, I was already thinking about how we do sales, because the company I worked for before, they had no sales team. It was just processing.
Yeah,
there was nobody trying to
get new clients.
They were just going off referrals, and I was like, we need to get out there and we need to hustle and put our name out there.
Didn't you even put out some like mailers
I did everything. Mailers, we did, social medias, we did email blasts, we did whatever we could to get our name out there, just to so people knew. I even walked into CPAs' offices and bookkeepers that I didn't know with candy and business cards.
Donuts.
Yeah, because if you give them candy, they're not going to throw it away. If it's stapled to, if your business card is stapled to something holding candy, it's not going to get thrown in the trash.
they'll like look at it at least,
Absolutely, I did whatever I could to like get in front of people and just tell them what we were doing, because it was about just being the name on the top of their mind when they needed the service, because our service you either need it or you don't. So just being top of mind when I got to pay somebody, or I got to do this, this payroll tax return or something like that. Think of iPay to do it. So, I really learned out what worked and what didn't work in that time, and it was quite an adventure. Going from an accountant, just working on accounting and numbers, to actually learn how to sell.
I'd like to
transition.
I'd like to interject here, because I think too, and you're dealing with people's money. Right, and you're dealing with really personal information, social security numbers, all of that stuff, right? Birth dates, all of that stuff.
All kinds of crazy data.
I think you kind of had the proof of concept with those ex-clients, also the clients that you used to service, because I think they wanted to do business with him, but they also were like, I don't know if he can do this.
Yeah.
Either, right? Like, this is a big deal. You're dealing with our money and our employees' monies, right? And so, why don't you talk about what happened with the company you were working for, and what happened with them?
Well, yeah. So I was getting to that. So we're trotting along. We're trotting. We're slowly gaining traction, right, in the market. And then hear that Christy and Vicky actually sold. They wanted to sell. They wanted to get out. They found a buyer, and we heard that they had sold to some company on the East Coast. And immediately I told my wife, well, that's not going to work.
No,
because we've been because the business was set up to be a local company. You could walk in and see your processor, you could see the owner. That's what that clientele liked, and that's what the
slower pace of, at least more community.
Absolutely.
And their market wanted that. So if they didn't want that, they would go to the big box stores. So as soon as that happened, I remember going, well, we're going to get hit. And sure enough, as soon as that happened, my phone started ringing, and all these old clients would say, "Hey, we're coming back, this and that. We want to deal with people we know."
Yeah.
And that was really a boon to the business. I mean, that gave us enough money to get out of her back of her, her office, and actually rent our own space. So that was one big boom to the business right there, is when they actually sold it. Right?
Yeah, but are you going to touch on the guy calling the lawyer on you?
Oh, so the guy who bought it must have found out that everybody was coming to me and sent me like some
cease and desist letter.
But it wasn't even. There was no real merit to it. It was like there was.
Didn't he call you?
He even called my office. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we cursed at each other for a little bit.
Yeah,
and
it was awesome.
And then I hung up on him.
I was like, who the hell is that?
And I told him, don't ever call here again. And I hung up. But we exchanged pleasantries on the phone. But it did. But that was the good thing, is we found our lawyer from that, because we sent him all that stuff that they had sent us, and he was like, this is nothing, don't worry about this.
Yeah, it's just a scare tactic at that point, and it's like,
and we must be doing something right, because they're scared of us.
Absolutely.
So.
And I think too, he knew that they weren't local. How can you possibly service people that are down here? They also had fired everybody, right?
Yeah,
they had let all of the other employees
go. And they were going to implement their system and their people.
And they hired one sales guy.
We'll get to him in a little bit. But so that was a boon to our business, them selling, because people wanted to come back and find me, so that was a nice little boom. And then just grinding it out, we created our own delivery service, which everybody loves, because in the Valley, trust me, I've tried to push people to go paperless and just pay everybody, and they can go on the app and see their pay, like 21st century stuff. But in the Valley, we have companies and contractors, especially, those guys, they want checks. So we still have a check printer in the office. We still do checks. We still have a fax machine. So with checks, you've got to have them delivered on time to your office, right?
Yeah.
So what we did is we devised a delivery service here in the Valley, and people love that. It's our own delivery service, and we have our own car, and I have my driver, Carla. Shout out to Carla. You do a great job. But And that's one thing that separates us from the competition, is because the guys that are not here, they can't print a check and run it over to you same day. If you got to fire somebody, or you need a check, you need to pay somebody that day. So that's something that separates us. And that's something local that nobody else can do unless you're here. You can't. Do it.
Well, and I think, like, I always think, I'm busy during my day. The last thing I want to do is stop what I'm doing to go drive to pick up my damn payroll. Yeah, like, no. As it is, it's when it just walks in the door, you're like, oh, it's here, and done, boom, right. So it was such a convenience, and people want convenience these days. We want convenience.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's all these industries that deliver food to your home. So
absolutely,
Uber Eats, all these are convenience. People don't want to leave the home anymore, and then especially since we all got kind of like fast forward into that digital world since 2020. Everyone was at home for a while, so all these services, and you had to learn how to do Zoom, and you had to learn a little bit. We're still not there yet, but I feel like slowly people are going towards the, like you said, 21st century modern technology.
I'm trying.
I think too, like, he's got, in our valley, he's got clients in Palm Springs. Do they want to drive out here to? No, they don't. He's got a client way out in where? Scirocco Stomach. So, and they drive out there.
And the reason we got that account, it's a nice big account, is because they were using UPS and FedEx, the big box guys, and they were always late.
Yeah.
We could guarantee delivery because it's our driver. We know she's going up there this day, and she's coming back, so we could guarantee delivery. So we won that account.
And I think you tried, huh? You tried doing it like.
Well, I was the driver, so that's the thing. Like, I was the driver at the beginning because I couldn't afford to pay somebody to drive.
To just drive.
Yeah. So I'd leave the girls in the office to do the processing. And I was the driver at first. I'd drive a little iPay car around, and I was so that's the thing about being your.
And that's cool too, because then you get to talk to every one of your clients in person, like, oh, what's up? Oh, you got any concerns, or what's going on?
And you bought the Prius. Why?
Brought the Prius to drop off payroll and wrap it.
Because of the gas.
Well, yeah, because it's a hybrid too.
Yeah, so that was one thing, So
save on gas. But so that service really was one of the reasons we've kind of grown. I think is because convenience, man.
That's so cool. I never heard of like a local business doing that.
No, and it's like we call the DoorDash of payroll.
Yeah.
You go on your phone and you order some checks, and they show up at your door. A couple hours later. So. And obviously we can only do that here locally, but it's something that really separates us, and it helps us, fight against the big box guys, so it's one thing that kind of separates us. So we're kind of proud of that. So.
Yeah, I seen your car. I see it.
I see it everywhere, right? I mean,
and it's great advertisement too. People drive, you see it going back and forth, and your logo's just, you call it subconsciously selling. Whenever they need it, then they know where to go.
Yeah, it's a moving billboard, man.
Yeah,
it's a moving billboard, and that's another great thing about it. So yeah, we've done that. So we've grown. I mean, from that time of being in the back of her office, we got our own little place, and then, and then we've always wanted to, we've always been told that you want to buy a building for your business if you can. So in 2019, when we were able to do that, we found a place that was pretty cool, right? I mean, it was meant to be, right?
It was meant to be. Should we tell a story?
Yeah, go ahead and tell why.
Okay, here we go. So my dad passed away September 19th, 9/18, right? And we had made the decision that we were going to go ahead and buy a building. We had a 2-story house, and we sold that. And so with that money, we had a nice down payment to put on somewhere, business. Right? Mm-hmm. That was kind of a business decision we made. We're like, well, we got to sell this thing. There's no way else we can afford this. And the building that I found, the selling price was $918,000. And it's such a weird number. Normally it would be like $925,000 or $950,000. No, it was $918, and I told Bobby, that's my dad. That's my dad saying, this is the one. And so we bought it, and it was a piece of shit.
Yeah, it was a dump.
It was horrible inside, and the guy, we couldn't get the guy out.
Oh yeah, we had a squatter.
Oh, really?
The guy,
we had a squatter in the building for a couple months.
It was crazy. So we couldn't get this guy out, and but anyway, we put both of our businesses into that building. We were back
together
again, but it worked because, again, we were scared to make that jump because now we had this huge rent payment due, right? But we were able to, I paid the majority of it because I had the majority of the space, but it was peace of mind, we're both paying this big note, right? So I think that was another smart move that we did, was we really were there for each other. So
so that was another big milestone for the company, is we kind of doubled our space, built out our own space. I mean, we're still under the
tile
umbrella of the tile store, but it helps you sell more tile, because I'd have clients that never went in your showroom, came to pick up their checks and oh, this is beautiful in here. So
and vice versa. Again, we were back to
the businesses definitely helped. It was definitely a good thing for both of our businesses.
And what's so funny is, in fact, one of my clients, Nick, he'll be like, "Hey, tell your husband I need this from the blah blah blah," and I'm like, and I forget that my husband does his payroll.
Yeah.
And I'm like, call him yourself.
It's a
I don't want to be
business.
responsible for that.
Business,
yeah. So it's kind of funny like that. I forget about that.
Yeah. So it was a good move. It's definitely a good move, and we grew. Started to grow from there too. It's almost like proof of concept. As clients see your business growing, they're like, oh, they're actually doing pretty well. Let's refer them more business. You guys know what they're doing, and then plus you have proof of concept with them. When you've done a good job for them, they're going to refer you. So, early on it was just, I was back to where I was with the other ones, all referral based. We were doing sales, but I didn't have a sales person. I didn't have somebody going in there trying to sell it. I was doing all that, but I was also doing the taxes. I was also doing
the driving,
everything. You got to do everything to get that thing off the ground.
You should touch on the part where you were like, man, when I worked for that other business, 5 o'clock came, Friday, 5 o'clock, and I didn't think about that business again until Monday morning.
Absolutely.
Now what?
Well, that's the thing about an entrepreneur is, that stuff never leaves you, and this as you're building your little empire too. Yeah. It's you're always thinking about what's the next step, right?
24/7. Yeah.
How do I make this better? How do I make more profit out of this? How do I monetize this? It never leaves you. When I was a 9-to-5 guy, I was managing a lot of people, but I come home, I'm not thinking about those people till Monday morning, man. If there's a problem, I don't give a shit. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. But now you got to be comfortable with not being uncomfortable sometimes, because you're not gonna ever have a lot of peace when you're building this thing out.
Yeah. So you're a business owner, but it's more like you're a problem solver most of the time. It's just we gotta do this.
You're a firefighter. You're constantly putting out fires.
Yeah, constantly putting out fires, and so it never leaves you. So as the people out there that are thinking about opening their own business, just realize that it's gonna be a lot of work. There's no cheat codes. There's no easy way to do it. It's a grind.
But there's a lot of freedom that comes along with it.
But the freedom is what is your payment at the end. But anyway,
tell us about the phone call you got one day from Mr. Hen.
Okay, so back to the story of the other company that I used to work for sold, and they fired everybody, right?
Yeah.
But they brought one guy in to do 3 girls' jobs. So they set this guy up for failure right away, and his name was Brian, and he was trying to do his best, but at some point he figured out he was in a lose-lose situation. This company kind of set him up to fail. They didn't give him the tools he needed to keep everybody happy.
And they're losing accounts.
So one day I get a call from Mr. Brian at this place I used to work from, saying, "Hey, how's it going? I just want to introduce myself. I heard you guys may be looking for a salesperson." And you weren't. And I don't think I was at the time. I think Brian was just being a salesperson.
Absolutely.
And selling himself, and that's why he's good at sales. Yeah. So, I was like, well, who is this? I'm like, well, why are you calling me from my competitor?
Yeah.
And so I actually we went out to lunch and talked about it, and he kind of told me what was going on, and he's like, yeah, I'm ready to make the switch and get out of here. It's like they're setting me up for failure, and so I was like, well, this guy sold me on him, so obviously he can sell some payroll and some services to other people.
So one of the cool kind of aspects of that was he had never had a salesperson. Who had salespeople? I did. So we were like, how do we structure this payment? Is it commission based? Right? My people make commission plus a base. And so it's like we kind of looked at what I was doing, and then of course he did some research about how other people were getting paid and how he was. I don't think they were paying him. I don't know what they were doing, but anyway, so that was something that Bobby had to really like figure out, because this was a completely different, brand new position, and how do you pay that person and keep them there as well, right? Mm-hmm. So
the whole new ball game.
Yeah.
I mean, salespeople, the good ones, you got to pay them. Otherwise they're gonna go somewhere else. So you gotta keep them happy. So there's no limit on their commissions in my company. They can make as much as they sell. They can make. There's no cap. He sells it, he gets it. Right. So that's and good salespeople are not the easiest thing to find, and she can attest to that. So
oh gosh,
Brian to this day is still with our organization. He's the manager of our business development department, and he's doing a great job. He's part of the reason I think he was the next step into, like, all my staff is awesome. All my staff is better than me at everything else. But when we hired the sales guy, that really took the business to the next level, because we had somebody focusing on bringing in new accounts all the time.
Is that like if you're starting a new business, would you recommend, who would be the first person you hire if you started a new business like from scratch?
I want to say sales, because sales drives your business, but I also learn how to do everything yourself, because at some point that sales guy might get a better offer, something might happen. You got to step in. So if my sales guy, if Brian calls out sick, guess who's taking that sales call that day? It's me. I'm taking the sales. Like if my driver calls out sick, guess who's driving? Me.
Yeah.
So like that's the blessing and the curse of the small business owners. You got to kind of know how to
do everything.
But sales, I mean, like, everybody says nobody's doing anything until somebody sells something, right, in your business. Yeah. So sales is just very important. So that was another accelerant on the business, was hiring Brian and getting him and just focus on bringing in clients. And I mean, since what was that, 2020 maybe 2020?
During COVID.
So it's been 3 years during COVID, and I mean, like we've grown leaps and bounds since then as well. So we're real happy with where we're at with that. But the key is really, if you want to grow your business, and this is something I had to learn, is hiring people better than yourself at those particular jobs. Because like I said, I know how to do everything in my business, but I'm not the best one to do it. You don't want me running your payroll, be your payroll account rep, because I'm not the best at it anymore. I have 3 people that are better than me at that. Our team is very good, like Addie and Carolina and Ephraim. They're all very good at that. They're experts at that. They're experts at keeping their clients happy, and they know the ins and outs of their accounts. And then I have Elizabeth, who's my GM now, and she's better at me than at everything basically in the company. She's the one that oversees everything, and she's been with me for a long time, 5 years almost, and she's very good. So team is all about team. You got to hire people better than yourself at those particular spots, and just let them go. Like one of my big mistakes in business is I wouldn't let anything go. I wanted the clients to talk to me. I wanted to be in control. I wanted to check all the work going out, and making sure it was correct. And I had to be able to let that go in order for the business to grow. That was
take a step back and
I had to, because
select the team leaders.
I was kind of a control freak, and I didn't even think of myself as a control freak. But I was very control freak about my business, my baby.
Sure.
But I had to realize, listen, you cannot grow this and you do everything. You have to find better people. And so luckily, my team is awesome. I mean, to this day, I mean, I can not show up for 2 weeks and they'd be totally fine without me. I mean, I still do some things. Right now I'm more focused on marketing and sales. But I still have to do some tax stuff and stuff like that. But
I think there's one very important aspect that you're missing, and that you haven't talked about quite yet. I shouldn't say you're missing. But what sets you apart from the big box stores, payroll companies to you?
The ADPs and the Paychecks of the world.
Right.
I mean, so we have to beat them every day at customer service and likability, basically, because they're big corporations. The ADPs, Gustos of the world, we're not going to beat them in budget and technology, because they have millions and millions of dollars, resources and all that stuff. So, we do our best. We do a good job with that stuff, and we're really competitive with them. But what we have to do every day, and I preach this to my team, is we have to beat them in customer service. Our customers have to pick up the phone and call us, and they have to like their rep, and so they have to want to deal with them.
What happens when you call ADP or Paychecks? You're a number.
What?
You're a number.
Their number?
No. When you call ADP or Paychecks, you don't get the person that's doing your payroll.
No, you get
religiously.
You get a computer.
You got some like random person that's trying to figure out your account. With his business, you got your own dedicated personal payroll person within your company, right?
You have your account rep who knows your account inside and out, and you're going to talk to them every time. So they're like a payroll HR department within your organization.
Absolutely.
So it's a good like safety net for our clients, because a lot of our clients are small business owners like us. They don't have time to think about, is my handbook updated, or what's the overtime law in California now, or what's the sick time law, which has changed, by the way. So call me if you don't know about that. But they don't have time to keep up on that stuff. They got to make money. They got to go out there and do things that produce money. So where we come in is we're going to be that backstop for you. If you get a love letter from the IRS or the EDD, you don't know what the heck it is. It might as well be in Chinese for some of these people. You send it to us, and we'll decode it.
So if you're a business right now, what kind of business would be looking to contact like iPay Solutions, or any business, or like they have to be a certain amount?
Or I'd say 90% of our clients are here in the Coachella Valley. We do have other states. We've had clients that leave and take us with them, and we've had our marketing has gotten to the point where we are getting out of state calls now, and our website is driving traffic because our pricing is pretty competitive. We're not the most expensive game in town, that's for sure. But we can work with anybody. If anybody that has that pain point of payroll and HR, that they're just sick of, if they have a company that they're just not responsive, or they're too big, and you're sick of being on hold for 30 minutes to talk to somebody about fixing a check, give us a call. We'll give you some alternatives that are local and that are much more customer service based. We want to be right there with you as the business owner. We want to stand right there with you and help you. Not you're not just another number in our company.
Well, and I think you've also added a big portion, which is HR.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we've not recently added, but we've upped our game in the HR space.
Absolutely.
So going back to Mr. Brian Henn, our sales guy, it's funny how the universe works sometimes, right? So Brian's wife, who's really cool, she's amazing. Her name's Amanda. She's the head of HR. She's an HR professional. She's the head of HR here at the YMCA, and she's worked at multiple spots like that. And as our kind of client base grew, we were seeing more. We have HR service, but it's all web based. It doesn't have that personal touch that our payroll service does. Mm-hmm. So what we did is one day, I think we were out to dinner for a birthday or something like that, and I just had mentioned to her like, hey, what would you charge me to talk to some of our clients that need a person? They can't go on. They don't want to go on a website. They don't want to go on a website and ask a question, and like the web based stuff that's out there right now. What would you like? What would you charge me to do that for a client? And we got to talking about it, and she's like, I can totally do that. So that little light bulb went up my head. I'm like, why don't we make this good for everybody? And you come in and do some HR for our company. Mm-hmm. And so for the last 2 years, she's been kicking butt. I mean, she's really good. And Fina can attest, because she's like her number one. I
use her all the time.
Her number one client right here. You're always on the phone with her, and she's very knowledgeable, very professional, and she's just she gives you that peace of mind, right?
Oh, absolutely. We've used her many times. Yeah. So it's been great resource for us.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we've kind of added over the years. timekeeping, we've upped our game on that with the timekeeping solutions. If you need a timekeeping, we're 401k and retirement plans. We can help assist to set those up, and you don't got to do anything. You just got to sign up for it, and then we take care of it all in the back end, all the reporting and all that stuff. So just an ever growing
solutions for
just a small business, all small business based, and we really want to take care of our small business owners, because it's, like I said, it's a grind out there. You got to get out there and make money. That's the number one thing. So if we could take this off your plate, then that's our goal.
How many businesses do you guys have now? You guys started with 3.
Started with 3, man. I have my mechanic, I have my parents, and I have my wife's business. So to this day, we have about 350 active small business clients.
Yeah, that's great.
And we got a team now built. It's not just me. I still in the office, but I won't answer the phone anymore.
Well, and I think what's great too is I'll be like, I have a plumbing issue, and I'm like, hey, who's on your your payroll that you do plumbing for, and that's who we use. Yeah, right? They're using our business.
That's one thing about going local is that like ADP and Paychecks, they're not going to refer you business. That's right. Yeah. They're just a big corporation. Using them, use them. You're never going to cross that referral, networking with them. With us, I'm always trying to we're always trying to help our businesses grow. So if I have somebody on my roster, hey, I need a roofer, hey, I need an electrician, and we got somebody on our roster, the first people we're calling are
your own clients. Sure. Yeah. You want them to get more business so they can keep growing. Yeah.
Their success is our success.
Of course, yeah.
And we want the long-term success of them as well as us. So that's what separates us as well.
And what's next for iPay Solutions? What's you just want to keep growing, just maybe growth, branching out, or
like I said, growth is the key. We're going to continue to add services. We're going to continue to do a real good job of getting out there and putting our message out there, and just I see another main thing that that's not touched upon by a lot of the small businesses here is I want our companies to create middle and high class paying jobs down here. There's not a ton of white collar jobs in this valley. Right. There's not a lot of white collar businesses. I want iPay to be one of those companies that's leading that charge, and we're gonna. It might not be a lot of them, but I want us to be industry standard is setting the standard for creating white collar jobs, and high executive paying jobs, and that's something that's a goal of mine. And that just helps our whole community. When you have higher paying jobs in the community, higher demand on skills, it's just it lifts the whole community up. So, that's one of the things I'm kind of focused on. Obviously growth, obviously getting our message out there, but just kind of building a community of entrepreneurs out there and a support system for that, and that's what we're trying to do. So,
thank you. Make sure you guys
like and subscribe, CV Hustle, and then you can hit us up on all socials at CV Hustle 760. And we're out here. We're gonna be getting in front of more titans of business in the community here, and we're looking forward to it. So stay tuned for the next one.